Hey guys, day 4 of Autism Awareness Month. So today I'm going to talk about another controversial topic, which you can't really talk about autism awareness without talking about possible causes. I know the main thing that people probably want to hear about when talking about causes of autism is vaccines. The only thing I'm going to say about vaccines and autism is that there have not been any research articles or studies done that have proven a link between vaccines and autism. I'm not a vaccine injury denier. I know that children are injured by vaccines, but there's not enough evidence to show that it is causing all these children to get autism. The really famous article that everyone wants to point to about the MMR vaccines, that researcher, doctor, had to retract the article because he was found to have falsified his findings. That's all I'm saying. Okay, so the other main factors that researchers are looking into about the causes of autism are genetics and environmental factors. So for genetics, there are over 100 DNA markers that they have found to be linked to autism. And the interesting thing with that, though, is that even within families with multiple people with autism, the genetic factors are all different. Another thing is chromosomal abnormalities. Like Carmelo does have a partial chromosome deletion, and that one is linked to autism. The boys have had genetic studies done, and they have been found to have, other than the chromosome deletion, no other known genetic markers that have been linked to autism. They're still finding new ones every single year. And I guess I will talk about one more study that I have read to do with vaccines versus genetics. So they had a child with autism who had been vaccinated, and then they looked at the siblings, and it didn't matter if the siblings had been vaccinated or hadn't been vaccinated. The rates of autism in the siblings was the same. So there it pointed more towards a genetic factor. They have also shown in some studies that autism and related disorders do run in families, and that family members of people with autism can display more autistic traits, even if they aren't diagnosed with autism, than those people without family members with autism. And some of the related disabilities to autism within families can be other developmental disorders, neurological disorders, epilepsy, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, ADHD. There's a range of them, but they found that those families who have more of those disorders and autism typically have more people with autism within that family also. So with environmental factors, they found that both before birth and after birth, you can have genetic mutations based on things that are in your body or put into your body, that you're exposed to, heavy metals, pesticides, cleaning products, and that can all be passed down from the mother, or it can affect a child like in their early developmental years. There have been a couple of studies about air pollution and the rates of autism, and those looked at the rates of autism in very condensed urban areas like New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, and compared that to those places that are a lot more open, a lot less traffic, like Utah, Wyoming, and they found the rates of autism to be extremely different. So air pollution, other environmental factors, they do believe play a big part in a child developing autism. And you can also have those extreme cases of abuse and neglect that in early years do physically change the structure of the brain, and that can cause disorders, including autism. And things that can happen after birth include, like, if the child becomes sick, a fever, seizures, those can all cause brain damage that then can lead to autism or autism symptoms. Some other ones I remember reading about just recently were looking at things like the rates of consumption of Tylenol while the mother was pregnant. The more often the mother took Tylenol, the more likely her child was to be diagnosed with autism. Ultrasounds. There's some controversy about ultrasounds right now, especially really early ultrasounds, more frequent ultrasounds during the pregnancy. They have linked that especially with boys. Like I talked about in yesterday's video, boys are more susceptible to environmental factors changing or damaging their DNA. And so more frequent ultrasounds, earlier ultrasounds, were found to cause statistically higher levels of autism in those offspring also. The use of induction medications such as Pitocin, augmented birth, those things also led to more frequent diagnosis of children with autism. One theory behind that could be that whenever you alter the birthing process, especially with things like Pitocin to stimulate contractions, it makes the contractions harder, and so that can possibly be putting stress on the baby, damaging like the baby's brain as they're being pushed out, those kinds of things. Of course, you're always going to have also the age of the parents. The older the parents are, typically the more susceptible their offspring are to having genetic mutations. And that's just an overview of some of the studies that I've read about in terms of what may be possible causes of autism. For me personally, I do have a family history of developmental disorders, autism, mental disorders, things like that that are comorbid, like I said before, in families with children with autism. My husband does too. So us coming together was kind of like, I knew our possibility of having children with autism was very high. But what are you gonna do? They're my kids. I love them. I wanted my own biological children. Fault me for that, right? But they're crazy. I love them. I'm so glad that they're here. So with that being said, I'll leave the comments open down below. I know this is, again, very controversial topic to talk about. So as long as the comments don't get nasty, keep it a civil conversation. Alrighty. Till next time, guys. Bye.